Hey everybody. I'm just gonna kind of cut to the chase here. I know that people are probably kicking it they together because of the holidays, and they were probably together long before the holidays with the pandemic still going on, but the stay-at-home orders are going to be lifted. Here in the state of Illinois, our stay-at-home order will be lifted at the end of next week. And I've been thinking a lot about that and how um, for the most part, I've been hearing people say how excited they are to return to normal. And I had to stop and reflect on that and said, well, it's not going to look the way it did. I don't believe that. Here we are all walking around with freaking masks on. I feel like if I feel like I have to keep a mask with me at all times. I keep one in the car with me just so I could walk up into a store if I have to. So that's not normal. There's nothing normal about that. And matter of fact, now that we want to, this word normal, the fact that people are so like excited about going back to normal, as they say, right? Americans decided that the pandemic was over, even though people are still getting sick, even though here in the state of Illinois, we are over 100,000 cases and counting, you know, they're ready for this. They want this to be over. And so it's over. They have deemed it over, even though it's not over, right? That's just the way America works. They decide, the white folks decided they're tired. You know, they equating, not being able to go to the golf course or the tennis salon to slavery. That's what they out here doing, right? The Karens are complaining. So they have opened up the country, right? And what I find myself saying and thinking is that while everybody is excited to go back to normal, normal wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And as we go back out into the world now, things are going to look different. This pandemic exposed so much. It exposed people. It exposed systems that a lot of us knew weren't working. But it exposed so much, guys. I was thinking to myself how many times you've heard folks try to chastise you and say things like, well, if something happens, you should have 6 months savings. You should just have savings, like as if, average people can just save up 6 months worth of salary just to have lying around somewhere in case something happens. That's just not the way it goes. People are barely making ends meet. Before any of this happened, people were living check to check. With minimum wage, you can't even have, especially here where I'm at in the state of Illinois, right outside of Chicago, you can't even get an apartment, and then pay all the utilities and all that other stuff that you may have with the minimum wage job. You're going to have at least 2 roommates just to kind of help you, right? So normal just wasn't working. Normal wasn't working. People telling us to save that kind of money, and then when shit shut down, the same corporations and rich folks that told us that we should have money saved up, they're going out of business. They're trying to get those PPP loans from the government. Same people that tried to tell us that we needed to have savings can't even say their own necks, right? So none of this shit was working. Everybody was out here fronting. So many companies and corporations were out here fronting big time, pretending to have money, but truly they were broke. They were broke. So many of them, right? And it's exposing these people. It's exposing this country for what it is. All these folks, folks got stimulus checks, right? It wasn't a lot. And I think other countries have done a far better job of making sure that they're taking care of their people, because a $1,200 check one time wasn't going to cut it. Okay, some people's rent was more than that. Some people's mortgage was more than that. And you cut a check one time for $1,200 and if you had a kid, of course you get a little bit more than that, right? But that once again exposes this broken ass country. If they had the money, which they actually printed, right? They printed that money to send out that kind of money to everybody, to working Americans and things like that. Yet Black Americans have been saying for the longest time, you enslaved our people. You built this country off the backs of our people. We should have reparations. We should have reparations for what you did to our people because you made your wealth off of the backs of our people. And they constantly telling us we can't, that's impossible. They can't do that. How could how can they figure out who should get it and who can't? Well, they figured out who should get a stimulus check and who shouldn't get a stimulus check. So I don't know why they couldn't figure out who should get reparations and who shouldn't. The truth of the matter is this country has never wanted to do it, right? So it exposes so many broken ass systems here, even with jobs. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people lost their jobs during this time, right? And that's so unfortunate. It's so sad. Again, this country's not taking care of its people, giving somebody one measly little check, right? Whereas other countries were making sure some of those countries were giving like $2,000 a month until this shit is over with. But a lot of people who kept their jobs, you have your essential workers who may have gotten $2 extra for being an essential worker, which is just so freaking insulting to me, right? Just absolutely insulting. They're putting their lives on the line. I'm not talking about just the healthcare workers. I'm talking about people at Walmart. There are people at Walmart. My cousin works at Walmart, and, you know, she was worried all the time about getting exposed. All the time. And you give them a couple of dollars more just to be an essential worker. That's bullshit. Right? But it also exposes just people like, for instance, myself. I'm in education. Now, what I would typically do, I would be be somewhere with students, right? I would be somewhere with in a school setting, higher education. But there are people who have been able to telecommute because of this whole thing. And so you think about that, and you think about the fact that people were able to slide over to that kind of education or that kind of way of working from home. And you think to yourself, did they ever really need to go into an office building? If I can take my job and come home with it and still do it, is there really any necessity to going back out? Is there? So, you know, over the last several weeks, people that are educators, the education systems, they've been struggling because they've been trying to figure out how best to bring students, whether they are adult students, kids, back into a classroom setting. And so the CDC put out some guidelines, you know, what they consider the least possible risk. So this list somebody put together, and this would be like the lowest possible risk of infecting other people. They had high risk situations, low risk situations. The lowest possible risk technically would be virtual classrooms, right? Just going right back into e-learning in the fall. That would obviously create the lowest possible risk. But this would be kind of like a compromise of, if we're going to bring kids back into the classroom, bring students, whether they're in college or grade school, this is the best way to do it. So having class, the desks 6 feet apart, having all the kids facing the same way, not passing each other in the hall, kids not eating in the cafeteria anymore, spreading out the kids on the bus. You can't sit next to anybody else anymore. The high schoolers and the middle schoolers, you can't switch classes anymore. Having the same teacher teach that group. And again, being in education, when I first saw this, I'm like, then you're basically blowing up brick and mortar schooling, because there is no possible way that you can implement all of this stuff we're talking about. And even in a usually public school setting, you have about 25 to 30 kids in the classroom, right? And that's still a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids. And you're talking about 6 feet apart. You can't do that. You can't, then you would be, you know, looking at a classroom that has maybe, you know, 10 kids in it. If you're talking about 10 feet apart, 6 feet apart, maybe 15 at most. And that's pushing it, right? So how do you implement something like that? How do you say, the kids need to eat in their classrooms from now on? How do you say, well, we're not going to do any more field trips, any more after school activities, no more extracurriculars? They mean sports. So how do you implement all of this? Now, this, like I said, this is the CDC guidelines. These are suggestions. They're not saying, hey, you have to do this, but they're saying to avoid risk. This is the best way. If you're not going to do e-learning, this is the best way to get back into the classroom. And I call bullshit, because it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And, personally, I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't necessarily see how they're going to implement this and bring those kids back into the classroom, bring students back into the classroom. And personally, when it comes to college, because I'm in the higher education, I think to myself, if you're going to insist that college age students do e-learning, why should my college age kid go off to school and I'm paying like $30,000, $40,000 a year for them to be online? You know what I'm saying? What's the difference between my kids saying they go to Harvard, or they go to the junior college here at home and they both online? At least I can probably afford the junior college, right? If they're just taking general ed courses and stuff like that. But people are going to have to really rethink this. Honestly, I honestly feel like this pandemic has exposed so many broken systems. The education system's been broken for a long time, and I think that this is exposing it. And maybe, now that they realize that these kids have to be 6 feet apart, maybe they'll realize that 25 to 30 kids shouldn't be in a classroom in the first place. That's too many kids for a teacher to have right at one time. So that's why I'm saying normal wasn't working. That's why I kind of labeled this normal wasn't working, because now people see that some of these systems need to be blown up. The education system need to be blown up. The fact that they're getting rid of the ACT and SAT for some college admissions because the juniors weren't able to take it, get rid of them, period. They don't need them, So that's why I feel like, maybe this is a restart. Maybe it's God is pressing the restart button for so many different systems here in our country, and we need to pay attention to that. Look at the silver lining in this, because there is a silver lining. The fact that they have to blow up brick and mortar schooling as we know it and figure out a better way to do it. Matter of fact, there's some schools that are saying maybe we can only bring in high schools. Maybe we can only bring in the freshmen and the juniors. The freshmen and the sophomores, from this time to this time. And then they leave, and then we bring in the juniors and the seniors maybe in the afternoon. Well, that means that you probably could have always done that. Maybe the school day is too long in the first place. Honestly, this has made me this brought so much clarity to me. And some of you might actually think I'm rambling, but honestly, this pandemic has brought so much clarity to me as far as how systems operate, and the fact that they weren't working. They just weren't working. And the fact that we may have to go back into virtual schooling scares me, because I hate e-learning. I don't like it. I don't like it. I do think that kids need to be able to socialize, but I do also understand that listen, I don't know about y'all, but since my kid has been home with the whole e-learning stuff, I haven't been able to afford to feed her. And I've been telling listen, you got to stop eating all day. You got to stop, because I can't afford you snacking me to death. Can I have a snack? Please stop. I don't know about y'all, but it has been, and I only got one here right now, right? My other doesn't live here. But the fact that is killing me. So I can't wait until the asses go back to school. I cannot wait, but it's going to look different. It's going to look different. And these kids may be walking around with masks for a minute. And as far as this whole vaccine thing, I don't know how many people are comfortable with the vaccine. I'm personally not comfortable shooting my kid up with some kind of vaccine. So this stuff is going to be around for a minute. And maybe hopefully it'll be one of those things that's kind of like, and I'm not calling it the flu, so calm down, but it will be one of those things that people will learn how to live with. That maybe once you get enough people that are immune to it, right, that it will kind of turn into something like, oh, I got that person has the flu and stuff like that. It will just maybe be different. and we will learn how to live with it. But for now, they are expecting a second wave, and the fact that folks is outside and pretty much acting like it ain't here lets me know that it is going to be a second wave. All right, it is going to be a second wave, but I wanted to show you guys these guidelines for the schooling, just so that you can think about that, because the kids will probably be heading back in the fall and it's going to look different. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about, of course, it being Sunday, is church. Churches are opening, and a lot of people are excited to get back. Y'all's president pretty much he was trying to override the governors and saying you have to open places of worship. Places of worship are essential businesses. And as I see some of my own family members posting like, yay, I'm happy to go back, I think to myself, it took you 2 months to realize that, or you took you 2 months and all this time you didn't realize that church wasn't a building, that God is essential. Whatever it may be, whatever you believe in, whatever higher power you may believe in. I believe in God. God has always been essential, but the building was never essential. The building was never essential to have a relationship with your maker, with your creator. And the fact that some people are sitting here saying, well, I just miss being able to sing in the choir. I miss being able to fellowship. Well, this situation hasn't been ideal, but you didn't have to stop fellowshipping, and you didn't have to stop Bible study, and you didn't have to stop choir practice. People figured it out. Hell, I've seen Bible study on Zoom. Okay. I've seen choir practice on Zoom. I've seen people getting together on Zoom and fellowshipping. So it saddens me that people who are dying to get back outside and go to church have only looked at church as a building. And if, and that may be some of you that's listening right now. And I'm here to tell you that church was never the building. You could have been worshiping God. You can worship God wherever you are. And any wise leader that has a church family that's leading his or her church family wouldn't want to put you in a position where you gonna turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, and the neighbor spitting all they Rona all over you, right? So wise leaders, a lot of them are making the decision, you know what? We have been doing fine the way we are. And the tithes and the offerings are still coming through because, again, there are other ways to do it. You don't have to be in a building. I know people miss being able to go to their house of worship. I get that. I get it. But is it safe to do so? Folks, you know how Black folks is. We get into our spirit. We like, yes, we hollering and jumping and dancing and everything. And I've never been in a church where I haven't been touched by somebody, where somebody came and hugged me, somebody came and put their arm around me, came and touched me. I don't know how they can do it. I don't believe personally that it can be done, because when you just get into that moment, you see your people, you just want to hug, you want to reach out. And and again, for me personally, I'm going to, and this is kind of off a little tangent, my kid, she's in sports, and over the summertime, I'm used to being on the bleachers and being like, go baby, and yelling and stuff like that. Now imagine doing that with people over you, they yelling for their kid and the shit coming out their mouth, the droplets coming out their mouth. That's not saying that everybody got the shit, that people that you're going to be around got it, but you don't know. And so just imagine the singing that's going to take place in the church, and the people hollering, and the people, yeah, preach it, go on, preach it, take your time preaching, the shit coming out their mouth because you can't see it. Most of that shit is, invisible droplets. So like I said, as you go out and you decide you're venturing out to go to church, I just want to remind you to be careful. And I also want you to know that you had 2 months to figure it out. You had 2 months to figure out how to connect with your people, and how to form a relationship with God in your own crib. You had 2 months to figure that out before you go into those four walls, because again, those four walls, that's not the church. Church is the people, in my opinion. And God's always been in me. So I don't need the building to have a relationship with God or the people. The church are the people, and you can connect with the people. Technology is as it is today so that you can have and form those connections with people. Church never had to stop. The essential business, the business of church had to stop, but the church never had to stop. And if you haven't connected with your choir member or Sister Eldine or Sister, then maybe you need to think about why you haven't talked to them or connected with them. There's a way to connect with people. That's the way the world is right now. Okay. So, hopefully this pandemic has, just opened your eyes to some stuff, and we will hopefully understand that normal just wasn't working, that things are going to look the same. Things are going to look a little different, and we just need to figure out how to navigate this new way. Right. Hell, the air is even cleaner outside. I don't know if y'all noticed that, but the air is actually cleaner. The animals are coming out. My insurance went down for a minute because people weren't driving. Now their ass is back out there. My insurance is going to go back up again, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to connect with you guys today as you do whatever you're going to do. And I wish you well. I wish you safety. I wish you love and happiness. And, I will, of course, see you guys on the next video. I want you to be safe out there this holiday weekend. Don't let nobody get all over you and touch all over you and spit all over you and kiss all over you. Just watch yourself, okay? And like I said, I will definitely see you guys on the next video. Take care.